Yeah.
Hello and welcome to this Broken Arrow deck showcase and creation. I'm the best Broken Arrow player in the world, so you should listen to me and build your deck as exactly as how I build it. Today we're looking at the Americans, and the specialization is airborne plus tanks. So this is a pretty common way of doing things. Basically, you do a heli assault or a paradrop to get into an objective, and then behind that you bring up the tanks. So you have the ability to both secure a place very quickly and then defend it, which is incredibly powerful. So looking at the first tab, the Recon tab, basically there's lots of things here. The way I like to build it, you get these army snipers. They're very, very stealthy. You can see they have a stealth value of 3, whereas regular scouts, this is 2.5, but these are regular scouts. If I show you like infantry or something, they have a stealth value of 1.75, and something like a tank would have a stealth value of 1. So they're 3 times stealthier than a tank, which you'd expect, given that they've got ghillie suits and these massive, massive backpacks. This guy's just here so he can stand out. His teammates are doing it properly, but he just wants to get shot, basically. He's the bait. So I like to bring one of these, and I bring it in, basically, between these two vehicles. This one is a little bit faster, and so I prefer to bring it in that. Of course, it is a bit more expensive, and there's no point paying extra to put grenade launchers on them and stuff. There's really no point, because basically you just try to get them there and then sell it. So I get one of those in the ISV, if it will let me do that. There we go. Then I really like these cavalry scouts. I like them for a lot of reasons, but basically they are recon, they are stealthy, and they get javelin anti-tank missiles, which is really, really, really useful. So I like to bring 2 of these, and I like to bring them in this very, very expensive Recon Bradley. So between the 2 of them, the M3A3 and the M3A2, the M3A3 has more optical ability. It is a better reconnaissance vehicle, which is why I prefer it. I'm pretty sure that's the only difference. Looking at the Bushmasters, they seem the same. The M240 seems the same. The TOWs seem the same. They carry the same amount of ammo. No, never mind. This is a TOW 2B, which has top attack, which is really, really useful. So that's another reason to bring the more expensive one. It's only 10 points more. So I like to bring 2 of these in 2 of these. I'm just taking a look at the Bradley CFV here. You can get, reactive armor and stuff like that. The APS is the most useful part, the active protection system. That will protect it from incoming ATGMs and missiles, of which there are many. So your first 2 hits won't even hit the armor. And you could get an upgraded engine if you want, makes it a little bit faster. But now you're starting to pay a lot of money, right? And I'll be honest, do you need all that money? Basically, a tank could be able to kill this very easily anyway, but it's more for dueling against IFVs, and it has a lot of anti ATGM armor. It's got heat armor, so it's good against ATGMs, right? You see, it's got a lot of front armor, side armor, right? So that can be very useful for 20 points, and the APS is useful against ATGMs. And to be honest, for an extra 10, we might as well get the extra engine, because that'll make it get to where it's going faster. So we're paying through the nose for it, but I think it's worth it. Then the next thing is, I like to bring this tank. I think it's really, really good. What is this? So this doesn't even have... Okay. It's got very good optics. I'm being distracted, I feel. Oh, very good optics. We'll see if we need it. I mean, 2,400 optics is not to be sniffed at, given that the infantry only has 1,700. Although this has 2,000, so there's probably a bit of overlap there, but it is literally half the price. Anyway, you bring the SEP2 Tour, so this is just a very good tank. So I like to bring that, and I like to bring 2 of them. The next thing I like to bring is the Grey Eagle drone. So between the drones, you've got the Global Hawk, and this thing is big, and it has a lot of spotting capacity. It is a very effective recon platform. 6,000 reconnaissance availability. And if we just compare some of the other stats to the Grey Eagle, it's significantly faster, significantly more maneuverable. So you might say, Hippie, why do you want the Grey Eagle? And why does it cost more? this thing you can bring with a bunch of Griffin missiles, which basically, if we just compare the Griffin and the Hellfire, you see that the Hellfire does have a little bit more range and a little bit more damage, and it has top attack. So what's the point of the Griffin exactly? Does less damage as well. Well. So basically, we want the Hellfires. Because the downside of the Hellfire is that you need laser guidance for it to work, but this thing does its own laser guidance. So we want the Hellfires. But another funny thing you can do is bring 4 Stingers on it, so you can use it against helicopters, which is honestly hilarious. So 2 Hellfires and 2 Stingers, really useful bit of kit. I like to bring 2 of them. And then, sadly, we cannot afford more army sniper. If you're in orange, it's fine. If you go to red, it kicks you out, but orange is fine. So let's see if we can afford 2 army snipers, because having 1 can be quite detrimental. Next tab, Recon tab, Inf tab even, I'm regarded. So the first thing we need is we're going to be dropping out of planes. So we need guys who can drop out of planes. And that's where your airborne comes in. These are just your standard infantry. Standard infantry, basically, that can drop out of planes, right? You compare them to mech riflemen who have less men, but they can't jump out of planes. There's no paratroop icon here. So, I prefer the airborne, although you are paying a lot more for them. But Steam no responding. Steam no responding. Yeah, I mean, I can open Steam right now. Steam seems to be fine. It's the Broken Arrow servers that aren't responding, I'm afraid. Anyway, we won't get into that too much. We need airborne. But we don't actually need that many of them. So, you know, 4 is more than suitable. The next thing we need is some toes. We're going to be dropping some toes out of the... I like to bring these because they're faster. But I'll be honest, maybe some grenade launchers are a good idea on these guys. But it's just because the range is better, right? It does more damage. It can really help them if they're, if they're not jumping out of a plane. It can help to have the grenade launcher in this case. So these guys just have machine guns, okay. Next, we want stingers, because we're going to be dropping out of planes, and we need some stingers to defend our guys. And if we were to bring them, we would just bring them in some cheapo Humvees, if we're not to drop them out of a plane, right? And we need some toes, because we're dropping out of planes with toes. And we need some weapons squad. So these guys have javelins, very useful. You see they're para-droppable, because you might be saying, well, you've already got javelins with your Cav Recon. But if we go back to the Cav Recon, Cav Scouts, you can see they can't be dropped out of the plane at the start. So if you want to do para-drops, you need some weapons squad. So that's it for the guys who jump out of the plane at the start. Generally, you can't really afford more than this, and maybe even only 2 airborne. But then what happens after that? Basically, you're going to need guys to back them up. And that's where the mech riflemen come in. So these guys, compare them to the engineers. Small D. Interesting. What's the point of that compared to an AT-4CS? Same range, same damage. The small has less pen. Oh, the small shoots at infantry. I see now. So this is an anti-infantry rocket launcher. Okay, I mean, it can be useful. I generally can't be bothered with that sort of thing. I want to be able to kill tanks. So we're going to be bringing some M2A3 Bradleys because they've got the top attack. And we might as well bring... We definitely need the APS. That's really useful. But in terms of the other stuff, I think if you want good Bradleys... get the other one. get the one in the Recon tab. So this is literally just we need infantry after we've done our airborne assault. So we can afford 4 mech rifles, but only a few of those. 50 cal team. If you want a 50 cal team, feel like that's a bit of a waste, to be honest, because you get plenty of 50 cal vehicles, so I don't see the point. So that's our inf tab. Vehicles. So this is where the fun part is. So basically, this is the best tank money can buy. The way I like to build my armoured regiments, there's a few ways you can do it, but the way I like to build it is I get the most armoured tank I can get, and I get a couple of those, and then I back it up with cheap as possible tanks. So the armoured guys take the hits, and the cheapest possible guys do the shooting, right? So that's the way I like to do it. So basically, you can get the M1A2 SEP V3, and you can put the Tusk 2 armour and the APS on it. And the Tusk 2 armour doesn't... only seems to affect the sides. But it does give you more hit points, which is very useful. But it does make the tank a lot more expensive. Like, a lot more. But this is sort of the point, that, you know, there's going to only be 2 of these, and then they're going to be backed up by the cheapest guns I can bring, which are the Sheridans. So the Sheridans, they're not very good against... So basically, this is a heat round, which means it's not fantastic against tanks, because the penetration is 600mm, whereas this is, you know, for example, it wouldn't even be able to shoot this in the front, because it's got 850mm of kinetic and 1400mm of heat. But the M8 AGS has 520mm kinetic, and it's got hash. Okay, either way, we're not going to be able to shoot enemy super heavies with these, but that's not really what they're for. They're for starters. Let's get some SEP V2s as well to pad out the Superman, and yeah, get a couple of those. Not that many. I'm getting distracted. We wanted the cheapo tanks, right? So we'll bring 4 M8 AGS, and the whole point of these is literally just to help out the team. And you see that if we put the 120mm gun on it, it can now pen basically anything ever, like 840mm kinetic. Although that's at minimum range, I guess. 525. Whereas this is, you know, less. So you want that mega gun on it, and there you go. So this is the M8 Thunderbolt now. And we don't need armor, because the whole point is that these shouldn't be hit. The tanks at the front should be hit. These should be at the back. 1400 meters range, right? And you can get 4 of these for the price of 1 of these. So you should have 1 of these and 4 of these, basically. And yeah, then we can get some Humvee TOW 2s, which are very useful. They're very cheap. This thing might be funny. I mean, it fires mine layers that blow things up, but I mean, I just think it's a waste of time, really. It's very expensive what it is. So between these two, the Humvee is just as stealthy, but it's faster. It's got less HP, it's got less armor, but it's faster, and that's sort of what it's all about. And you don't, I mean, we can go for the overfly attack, which is really useful, but there's no point armoring this. I mean, well, okay, so that means you can't drop it out of a helicopter anymore. This can be dropped out of a helicopter, which is actually very important. Sorry, a plane. My bad. And we've got smoke launchers. You can put smoke on it, which is honestly very, very useful and can save it from numerous things. So that's very useful. So yeah, we'll get as many of those as money can buy, and there you go. So that's our vehicle tab. Next is supply, support. So the first thing we want is a really nice big truck that can carry lots of supply. So this can carry 11,000 kilos of supply, whereas this can only carry 10,000. What? That's not that big a difference. Oh, I'm regarded. This can only carry 2,000. I was looking at my notes then. I'm like, why did I say I was picking the MTV? This can carry 4,500. This can only carry 2,000. So it's like, wow, you can drop this out of a plane. Well, why? I mean, you're going to land where you want to be anyway, right? So there's not much point in that. So yeah, this is the one you want to bring. Get 2 of them. Then if you really do want some AA and stuff, you can get the Avenger for dropping out of the plane. Then you do need some long-range AA, so you can bring a Patriot as well. And if you really want, you can bring 4 missiles, but there's really no point, because if you just bring supply, then you don't need 4 missiles. So I prefer to just bring the cheap one and bring 2 of them, and then I'll have 4 missiles anyway. This thing can work, but I mean, it's basically firing air-to-air missiles from a car. That's literally what these are. And it can fire them sort of reasonably quickly, but yeah. So I've got my long range, I've got my short range, then, you know, you can get something like this. If you want AA with your tanks, you could use this, but honestly the Avenger does that, so I don't see the point in getting both of them. Double missile pods, interesting. So then it just fires faster, I guess. But it makes it a lot more expensive, so I don't really see the need. And it gets rid of the 50 cal. No, the 50 cal's down there. My apologies. So we need some artillery, right? So between these two, this thing can be used against laser-guided. So if you get a laser fix with your Hawk or with your army snipers, then you can use this to drop a bunch of laser-guided ballistic missiles on them. So that is very cool, right? So you want that so that you can do your laser-guided ballistic missile funny. Then you need artillery that you don't need that for, right? So between these two, the difference is that this also has the ability to have laser-guided funny. So the one that's 10 points more carries better HE because it's got the HE wrap, which has more range and the same damage. So it's better, although the dispersion seems to be higher. Interesting. But yeah, it deals more damage, right? And it's got more Excalibur rounds, which are the laser-guided ones. So between the two of them, there's not that much in it, but I would prefer to pay 10 extra points to get the extra range. I think that's worth it. So I doubt you're going to need more than 2 of those. Then I really like to bring mortars, because they can be useful. Just bring in a couple mortars for close range stuff, and you can change it to guided rounds if you really want, but from mortars, probably not worth it, and it probably doesn't need self-defense, and it probably doesn't need armor, right? You can put smoke on it, which was probably really useful, but in fact, for 10 points, that's very useful. It can save its life, and it adds the armor, so that's a very, very worth for 10 points. And then, basically, your tanks, if you really want spag with them, you can bring this as the spag that goes with the tanks. And these are also useful for infantry fire support, so they can be very, very useful. So that's that, and we went a little bit over because we brought 3 supply vehicles, but it shouldn't really be a problem, and if we need more points, we can take this out. Helicopter tab, so this is where the fun part is. So you can, this is just a transport, you can put, you know, HMGs and miniguns on it. I'm surprised that the minigun costs less than the, well, you would think that the minigun would be better. Oh, it's got less range. Okay. But yeah, that's if you want it. But basically, I like to bring the Chinook so that I can... Basically, it's usually more useful to do a heli drop at the start than an airdrop, because the airdrop costs a lot of points, and usually it gets blown up by a plane straight away, whereas the helicopters are a lot harder to see. So I really like the Chinooks, and I want to bring 2 so that I can get 1 for supply and you know, still have 1 in the field. So that's really, really useful, because these can also carry supply, so they're very, very useful. They carry more than the Black Hawks. They obviously cost more, but they carry a lot more, and you know, they can carry more people, so you can do a bigger heli attack at the start, whereas this is only 12, so you'd have to buy 2 anyway, which makes it more than this. But it's 2 targets, so something to consider. Then you've got the Apache and the Apache longbow. The longbow is better because it's got better vision, and also it can fire... they can both fire. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Oh, I see. The prices are quite similar when you start putting the Hellfires on. So, this can see further, and look, if we just take everything off these real quick, give them all the cheapest options, you know, the price isn't actually that different, and this can see a lot further. So, I would prefer this one, and I like to bring 2, and I like Hellfire, Fire and Forget missiles, right? Whereas these are not Fire and Forget missiles because it doesn't have the massive donut on the top. So this is just way, way better for a little bit more money. So I like Hellfires, and then I like rockets for close range stuff. I mean, you can bring more Hellfires, but it's very, very rare that I fire all 8 Hellfires without having to pull back because somebody's just chucked a jet at me or the AA's come in. You know, it's usually the case that you're all right with 8 Hellfires. So I prefer these for close range because sometimes infantry does get up to you and then you can hit them with the Hydras. You can also use guided rockets if you want, but I don't really see the advantage. I mean, how many times are you going to be in range of, you know, a guy and you like desperately need it to be laser guided? I don't really. Is it better? Somebody in chat must tell me. It's got less dispersion, right? But I just don't think it's worth it. It's just... So then the last thing is you can get so you know you can bring both types of longbows if you really want. But yeah, you can get this Kiowa Warrior, and I like to bring this with a bunch of stingers on it, so I can use this to kill enemy helicopters and planes. So you can bring this at the start with your heli drop to shoot down enemy planes that are coming to kill you, and it's actually reasonably good at it. So you can bring 3 of them to do that. You can bring it with the optronic mast, but there's usually not a point because the longbow does... If you want vision, you got the longbow, right? So you want this as cheap as possible, so you can bring as many stingers as possible, so that you could fight the enemy planes which he sent to shoot down your transport helicopter. So that is the way I like to run the heli tab. Then we've got a few points left for the air. So the first thing is we need to drop people out of planes, right? So the difference here is that this one is more survivable, but it costs 50 points more. But it is more survivable. And it's a lot faster, which means it's faster to the target, which is a really big difference. You see, it's 350 forward speed versus 250. It really does matter. That means you're going to get to the target a lot faster, and you might survive. You can also carry more things. It's also something I haven't pointed out yet, is that the M8 Thunderbolt can be dropped out of a plane. Which is pretty interesting. I've just gone out of my selection there. So I like to bring the Globemaster, and I like to bring 2. And the reason why I bring 2 is I always buy 2, and I send 1 out first, and that's the one that gets shot by the enemy planes. And the one behind it has all the guys in it. So if you want to do an air attack, I recommend that. Then you need to survive the enemy who is going to try and kill you. And for that, you need ASF, which is this. So basically, you can put Stormbreaker, you know, drag bombs on it and stuff like that. But generally, like cruise missiles. But this is your anti-air fighter. So why do we go for the Eagle 2? It costs more, but it has more ECM, which means it's more survivable, and it's slower, but it's more maneuverable. It's more maneuverable. You see, it's got this is maneuverability, so it can turn faster. It's not got as much fuel, but that doesn't really matter because you're going to send it out at the start, shoot down whatever's killing your Globemaster, and then get out of there. You're not just going to hang around, right? You can also make it cheaper by getting rid of some of the AMRAAMs on it, right? Because you'll notice that this doesn't have as many. This thing's got a lot of missiles on it. So the thing with the AMRAAM is that it can also it can't shoot helicopters, right? Which is important. So you probably don't need that many AMRAAMs. So you can save a lot of points by just bringing 4 here instead of 8. Because you're not going to be firing that many AMRAAMs, right? Another thing you can do is bring seed missiles on it. So these just shoot by themselves and they target enemy radars, which means, so at the start of the game, these aren't that useful. But as the game goes on, you can then use this ASF, which you bought at the start, as a multi-role fighter. Multi-role in that you use it to take out the enemy seed, the enemy AA with seed, suppression of enemy air defenses. These home in on radar missiles, right? So you've got 4 AMRAAMs, 2 seed missiles, and then you can get more AMRAAMs, or you can get a mix of AMRAAMs and the other one. So this is the one I like, because basically this has 4 sidewinders which can shoot helicopters, and then it's still got the four aims. So now you've got 8 AMRAAMs, which is definitely enough. You could even go for this, but then you don't really have a lot of sidewinders. So I prefer this, right? So this way you get 8 anti-air missiles, anti-plane missiles, and you still get 4 anti-helo missiles, which can also be shot at planes. And that's all good. Then you can put like laser guidance on it and stuff like that, but there's really, I mean, is there much point? It could be really useful, but because it flies so fast, right? You're not really going to be able to designate much of anything, so I don't really think it's a good idea. So there you go, that's your fighter for the start. I like to bring 2. No, I don't. I like to bring 1. And then I want a strike aircraft. That's the Strike Eagle. So the Strike Eagle, we can put all sorts of funnies on it. Lots of choices. I don't really care about anti-air ability on this, so I just take as little as I can, which is 50 points. I can't get rid of it. So this is the one that probably does need the designation pod, because you want to drop your JDAMs. So what are these? These are laser-guided low-drag bombs. This one is £2,000, and this one is £500, so it's not as good. So you want the £2,000 bomb. And then here, you can also carry more £2,000 bombs. I'm going to level with you. It's probably a bit overkill. But, yeah. And then you can carry even more £2,000 bombs. Or you can carry fuel tanks so that you can actually stay over the target long enough to drop your already 5 £2,000 bombs, right? Which you're probably not going to be able to do anyway, because usually there's enemy anti-air. But that's what the other Eagle is for. That brings the seed, which suppresses the enemy air defenses, and then you come in and you blow everything up with your JDAM. So that's the idea. And now we're 5 points over. So what we're going to do here is go to the supply, and we're just going to get rid of 1 supply vehicle. So there you go. That's the deck. All this time we've been trying to connect to the servers and it's not been possible, but I hope you enjoyed that deck creation. I'll just show you the final one, so you can take a screenshot of that. I appreciate you bearing with me. Go forth into 5v5 and eliminate your enemy. If you do like these guides, please like and comment on the video. It makes YouTube recommend them to more people, and I'll see you around. Thank you.